Right now, you are warm, and you didn't have to do a single thing to earn it. The heat just runs, quietly, in the walls around you. There's a coat hanging by your door that you didn't have to kill anything to make. There's food in your kitchen that will still be sitting there next week, no matter how hard the wind blows outside. That warmth is so constant, so guaranteed, that you have completely stopped noticing it. Now take all of it away. Every bit. No heater, no coat, no full kitchen. Just your bare skin, a dying fire, and a night so cold it could reach into your sleep and stop your heart before you ever opened your eyes. That was not one terrible week in someone's life. For hundreds of thousands of years, for your direct ancestors, that was simply winter. They lived through real ice ages, walls of ice a mile high swallowing whole continents. So how on earth did a naked, shivering tropical ape survive a frozen world that had every right to erase it completely? Start with the brutal truth about your own body. It was never built for cold. It was built for Africa, for heat, for sun, for wide open grassland under a blazing sky. You have no thick fur to trap warmth. Your skin is thin and bare and loses heat fast. Strip you naked and put you outside on a freezing night, and you were never designed to survive it, not one night below zero. And then the whole world turned against that design. The great ice sheets crept south. The temperature crashed and stayed down for thousands of years. This warm weather animal suddenly found itself standing in a landscape of endless snow and screaming wind that, by every rule of biology, should have killed it in days. The sensible thing, the safe thing, would have been to retreat back to the tropics and never leave. Instead, our ancestors did something that makes no biological sense at all. They walked straight into the ice, on purpose, and they stayed. They could do that because they carried something no amount of cold could ever take from them. They had fire, and you have to stop and really feel what that meant back then, because we've made it boring. Every other animal in that frozen world was trapped inside the body it was born with. A wolf had its fur, a mammoth had its fat, and that was all they would ever have. But a human could pick up a burning branch and carry a piece of the sun in his bare hands. Fire was portable summer. It shoved back the darkness. It turned a slab of frozen, rock-hard meat into a hot meal. It held the killing cold at arm's length through the longest, blackest night of the year. A single human crouched over a fire was no longer just a shivering, half-frozen ape. He was the one warm thing for miles in every direction, sitting inside a small, flickering bubble of stolen summer while the entire world outside it turned to ice. But fire has one fatal weakness. It doesn't travel across open snow with you, walk away from the flames to hunt, and the cold is waiting. So our ancestors did something no creature on Earth had ever done before. They looked at the animals that were built for winter, the ones wearing thick, warm coats they themselves would never grow, and they took those coats and they put them on. At first, it was crude. A heavy hide simply draped over the shoulders. Better than nothing but loose, gaping, letting the wind knife right through. It kept you alive, barely, but it was the beginning of something that would change the whole story. The moment a fragile tropical animal decided that if it couldn't grow fur, it would simply steal it from something that could. And then came a single invention, so small you could lose it in the snow, and so powerful it may have decided whether we lived or died. The needle. A sharp, patiently carved sliver of bone with a hole bored through one end. It sounds like nothing. It was everything. Because with a needle and a thread of sinew, a human could suddenly sew. They could cut a hide into shaped pieces and stitch them into fitted clothing. Sleeves, hoods, leggings, boots, layered, snug, and sealed tight against the wind. This was not a blanket thrown over your back. This was a wearable shelter, tailored to the exact shape of your body, that let you move, hunt, and travel through a frozen world while carrying your warmth with you every step. Picture a woman by firelight, squinting, drawing that bone needle through hide again and again, breath fogging in the cold. She wasn't just making clothes. She was building the armor that let our species walk into the ice and keep walking. Then they went one step further and learned to trap warmth in a place instead of just on a body. A cave was the obvious prize, solid stone walls that blocked the wind and held the heat of a fire long into the night. But caves are rare, and the frozen plains stretched on for hundreds of empty miles. So where the land offered no shelter, humans built their own out of the only giant thing lying around, the animals themselves. On the Ice Age steppe, archaeologists have found huts made from mammoth bones, dozens of massive tusks and skulls and ribs, stacked into domes and draped with heavy hides. Inside one of those bone shelters, with a fire burning in the center and warm bodies packed close together, a night that would kill you out in the open became a night you could actually sleep through. They couldn't change the weather, so they built a small, warm world of their own, hauled a fire into the middle of it, and pulled the door shut against the ice. But a warm body is still a starving body, and winter is a season of hunger like nothing you have ever known. Nothing grows. No fruit, no roots, no berries, no easy green meal. For months on end, the land gives you nothing. So survival came down to one cold, simple equation. You had to eat the giants before the winter ate you. Mammoths, woolly bison, reindeer, walking mountains of meat, and, more importantly, of fat. That fat was the whole game. Fat is dense, slow-burning fuel, exactly the energy a human body needs to keep its internal furnace roaring through the long dark. Lean meat alone can't do it. In deep cold, you need the fat or you fade. A single successful kill of one of those great beasts could feed an entire group for weeks, deep into the freeze. In an ice age, cold and hunger were not two separate enemies. They were the same enemy, and fat was the one answer to both. And fire tied the whole survival machine together in ways we rarely stop to notice. It didn't just warm the skin, it unlocked the food. Frozen meat, hard as stone, went soft and safe over the flames. Rendered animal fat could be burned in a simple stone lamp, giving light through the endless winter night when the sun barely rose at all. That same fire dried soaked hides so they could be worked and sewn, hardened the tips of wooden spears, and cracked bones open to reach the rich marrow inside. The fire was the kitchen, the workshop, the lamp, and the heater, all burning in one spot at the center of every shelter. Everything else, the clothing, the hunting, the huddling together, orbited around those flames. Let the fire go out on a deep winter night, with no easy way to make another, and a whole group could be gone by morning. So someone always watched it. The fire was survival itself, and it was never, ever allowed to die. And here's the deepest secret of how the warm ape beat the cold. No one, ever, did any of it alone. Winter was the ultimate test of the one thing humans have always done better than any other creature on Earth: sticking together. Bodies packed close in the dark shared their heat, so that the group stayed warm in a way no single person ever could. A strong hunter fed the ones too old or too sick or too young to hunt for themselves. And the elders, the ones who had somehow lived through the last brutal winter, carried the most precious survival tool of all inside their heads: memory. They told the young ones where the herds crossed, which storms killed, how their own parents had made it through. Alone, a single human in an ice age is simply a corpse that hasn't happened yet. But a group, huddled around a shared fire, pooling warmth and food and hard-won knowledge, could do the impossible. The cold could kill a person. It could never quite kill a people. And then there was the weapon the cold never saw coming, the one no fang or fur could match. We could see winter arriving before it got here and get ready. Long before the first snow, humans were already preparing. They watched the animals grow restless and followed the great herds as they moved. They killed and dried and stored meat while food was still easy, deliberately burying a whole summer of work in the frozen ground to be dug back up in the starving dark of the cold months. They planned. No other animal on that entire frozen continent could look months into the future and prepare for a threat that hadn't even arrived yet. The mammoth simply reacted to the cold. The wolf simply reacted to the cold, but the human mind reached forward in time, saw the winter coming, and quietly got ready for it. One full season ahead, every single year. We didn't just endure the cold, we out-thought it. Now stack it all together and look at what this fragile tropical animal actually pulled off. Fire it could carry in its hands, clothing it could cut and sew to fit its own body. Shelters it could raise from stone and bone on an empty frozen plain. The fat of giants, burned as fuel against the cold. A group that flatly refused to let each other die in the dark. And a mind that saw winter coming and prepared for it a season in advance. Put all of that in one animal, and something incredible happens. It doesn't just barely survive the ice, it thrives in it. We crossed frozen land bridges that connected whole continents. We pushed into the coldest, harshest corners of the entire planet, places that should have been utterly lethal to a creature like us. We followed the ice all the way to the ends of the earth, and we did none of it by growing tougher skin or thicker fur. We did it with fire, needles, planning, and each other. So tonight, when you finally step inside and the warm air folds around you, and you pull off a coat you never once had to bleed for, and you glance at a kitchen with food that will still be there tomorrow, stop, just for 1 second, and understand what that ordinary warmth actually is. It is the ending of a war that lasted 100,000 winters. Every shiver your ancestors survived, every bone needle threaded by trembling firelight, every night a group pressed close in the dark and simply refused to freeze. Every one of those was a small step toward the effortless warmth you now don't even feel. You won that war so completely, so totally, that you forgot it was ever a war at all. That warmth around you isn't nothing. It's a victory so old it turned invisible. If that made the warmth feel a little different tonight, subscribe and stay curious.